Delahunty.
I rise to take a very brief call on this bill, and also just to mihi to the people of Aoraki Canterbury, because the rest of us have lived through a very different time from you and from them. And we need to, those of us who have not been shattered by an earthquake, acknowledge what a tough time this is. I was in Gisborne for the 6.8 degree earthquake some couple of years ago, and it felt really bad, but it was clearly nothing compared to what Aoraki Canterbury has been through. So, we need to acknowledge you. But also, I wanted to support the comments that Dr. Graham and other people have made about this legislation, because I think it's important to look at the long-term implications of it. And that's why we're calling for an amendment that would give a sunset clause after 6 months for a review, which is not to say that the legislation couldn't be extended after that, but that in an extraordinary circumstances, such as we are in now, in extraordinary times, we need to be extraordinarily vigilant about the kind of planning and decision-making that we facilitate. And I guess when I look at the acts that have been mentioned under this Act that could be suspended, such as the RMA, such as the Historic Places Trust, there are certain red flags in those acts that we need to think about, because we're going to be dealing with enormous amounts of infrastructural development and change and waste disposal. And that has implications in terms of resource management for many years to come. The Minister just mentioned the issue of sewage discharges, which is something I've spent a lot of time in my life glamorously working on. And actually, under the Resource Management Act, currently under Section 107, we have exceptional circumstances clause that allows for the emergency discharge of sewage. So we may not need to be suspending holus bolus all parts of such acts. And actually, that exceptional circumstance clause has been misused. It has been used to allow for 40 years of pollution in the Bay of Plenty. And I'm not suggesting that's the intent of the Minister. I know that it's not. But I do think that when we have got clauses like that exceptional circumstance clause already in existence under the RMA, we have to be careful about suspending it. Equally with the Historic Places Act, one can envisage a situation where an area which is an archaeological site, for example, could be in an area that's been damaged and could be destroyed without any kind of survey. And we lose forever the archaeological knowledge that the Historic Places Act was set up to protect. And so in our haste to rebuild, we could lose the essence of some of these key aspects of our communities. I think the Minister quite rightly said the landfills are going to be under enormous stress. So if the landfills are going to be under enormous stress, are we going to dump the range of hazardous waste with the range of ordinary waste? Because that's the kind of thing that's happened in the past in landfills. So we've got huge issues about planning and decision-making that urge caution. And I think we have nothing to lose in supporting the Act, which we would like to do, but ensuring that within 6 months we stop and we wait and we ask our communities, is this on track? Have we made good decisions, and are we doing the right thing? Because some of us are concerned about community voices. We're concerned, as Minister Turia mentioned in the first reading, about representation of Māori on the Recovery Commission, because we have already had a debacle in Auckland around the representation of tangata whenua, and we don't want that to happen again. In the rebuilding of a vibrant city, we need the voices of tangata whenua, we need to have community planning, and we need to have review. And before we start holus bolus getting rid of the powers that have been developed under certain acts, we need to think about the long-term environmental conditions that we are creating. Because the last thing that the people of Aoraki Canterbury need is to have long-term problems built into our desire, with the best of intentions, to create emergency legislation that is not well thought through. And so we are hoping that some of our amendments will be adopted, and we think that it's really important that we consider what could happen if they are not, and consider the importance of planning carefully. This is not a time for any form of paternalism. It's a time for engagement with local communities. And that's what this Act needs to be about, and much of it is. But we do have concerns about that sunset clause. We have nothing to lose in going back to March 2011 and actually reviewing this issue. Tēnā koutou katoa.